Do you read me?
Be advised, you are coming in weak and unreadable.
Say again, Com Tower. This is Macho. Do you read me? Over.
Macho, this is Com Tower. I read you Lima Charlie.
Com Tower, Com Tower. Request permission to launch and commence the field op. Over.
Stand by. Macho, permission granted. Say again, permission granted.
Roger that. Launching podcast in 3, 2. You are now entering the field op with your host, Pacho Correa, Chief Warrant Officer 3, United States Marine Corps retired. Get some. Hurrah! Get some. Hurrah! What's going on, everybody? Another Friday's Eve is upon us, or Baby Friday is another name I like to call it. So before we get all started, let's just get all the rudimentary stuff out of the way. This show is brought to you by our sponsor, Castle Global Services. Castle Global Services has a wide array of a bunch of different things to offer. You go on there for your cable, internet, Wi-Fi, mobile phone, utilities, electrical, and gas, depending on the state that you live on. I highly suggest that you check them out because you get better prices. Also on the commercial side as well. Hey, we're in October, November timeframe. We're in an enrollment period. So if you're looking to switch and put some money back in your pocket instead of going through your current jobs, insurance services or medical, give Impact a check, right there on their website. So go to castleglobalservices.acnibo.com and go on the impact option and learn more about it. Hey, put in your information in there, and no commitment. They'll give you a call and run you through some things. But I highly recommend it because I know they'll beat the numbers. So, and this show is also brought to you by the Constitution of the United States of America. Hayat. What does that mean? Is that, hey, this show is all about freedom of speech as well as the right to bear arms. I stood for that stuff for many years, and I still do. As a veteran. So what does that mean? Is that, hey, if you like this show, go ahead and stick around, like, subscribe, and follow. Share me with your friends and your coworkers because we're pretty much all over the interweb. And if you don't like it, then go ahead and move on to someone else, perhaps someone from SitchRadio.com. They have iPodcast Dan, Combat Vet Vision, among other different shows that are on there as well. So with that being said, hey, my next guest is somebody that's near dear to our hearts, and as well as somebody who he is the unsung hero of this show. This is Brian Colburn. Brian Colburn was in the Marine Corps from the late '80s into the '90s, and then from there he transitioned into the private sector. But you know what? Before I get ahead of myself, let's bring Brian into the fold. Yeah, what's going on, homie? How are you?
Dude, it's always weird to be on somebody's show because I still have all of my work to do. But thank you for having me, brother.
No, it's like I told you last week, dude. It's like, I mean, I know you're a fellow veteran yourself and a Marine at that. So, and it's like, wow, I can't believe I haven't had this dude here on my show. And he's got a lot to share with us, given your experience, and as well as you being basically the backbone and foundation of the field up. So I just want to take the time to, one, thank you for your service, and thank you for honoring us with our show. So thanks for being here, man.
It's been a good time, man. You kind of pushed me a little bit with some of the craziness you wanted to do, which I love. One thing about this job, you do the same shows every week, right? And I love it when they're like, well, I want to do this. And I have to conceptualize how we're going to get that done. Is it a good fit for audio only? Is it a good fit for video? And you've pushed me a little bit. So I thank you.
No, that's awesome. But before we get, ahead of ourselves, because I know we pretty much spent some quality time talking about everything. Let the audience, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us, the shoes that you walked in, what's your background, all that good stuff as far as Marine Corps and so on and so forth.
I grew up in an extremely religious home. My father was a Marine as well, and he always told me to join the Air Force. He wanted me to have a better life than what the Marine Corps gave him during the 50s. But I just felt called to join the Corps. And I actually left Boy Scouts. A lot of people don't know this. I actually left scouting because I joined the Young Marines,
Oh
and
wow.
we had a active duty Young Marine unit at El Toro when it was still an air station.
Yeah.
We were actually given an entire building there, so we had our own little barracks and all of that. But it was actually pretty good training, preparing me for what eventually came, which was boot camp. I knew my general orders. We did the PT test. I actually went to the gas chamber for the first time as a young Marine while I was still in flipping high school, dude.
Wow.
So boot camp, it's a mind game, but I knew a lot of the games, so I could just calm myself and go, okay, it's not forever, it's just for now. Let me make it to lunch. And you get through it. So um I joined the Corps right out of high school. I left 3 days after I walked across the stage, grabbing my diploma, and did boot camp. I turned 18 in boot camp and
Oh wow.
left boot camp, did MCT, SOI, went up to Vallejo. I I had 5 days of recruiter's assistance. I was asked to go to school early because I wasn't a very good recruiter assistant. And you spent time in recruiting, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I did it as a boot, and then I was a recruiter myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you were worthless, boom, you were sent home.
Yeah, I was worthless as a recruiter assistant. So I went to school a little early, which is fine. Went up to Vallejo to Mare Island and went through security force school. Then I pumped to Alaska for a year as punishment for having a little too much fun at security force school. So I spent a year of my life out in the Aleutian Islands on ADAC. And dude, then I went to 29 Palms, ADAC, Alaska to 29 Palms, California.
Wow, what extremes.
Hooked up with 27 as they were just coming back from the first Gulf War. So now I'm a barracks baby hooking up with an infantry unit that went to the sandbox. So paid my dues for sure, had to prove myself a little bit. But I remember because I think it was 15 days of acclimation before you had to really do anything.
Yeah.
And I check into my unit 9 days later. It's like, hey, we're going to Bridgeport, California. My staff sergeant pulled me aside and said, we're going to Bridgeport. You have 15 days acclimation, but you're not a pussy, right? Staff sergeant, I'm all in. Let's do this. So we're humping from main side 29 Palms out to that flipping airstrip out
Oh
in the
yeah,
middle.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was dying, dude. Full combat load. It's, 100 degrees. And I just come from Alaska. And it wasn't fun, but did that pump. We did a lot of little stuff. Was with the Joint Task Force with the War on Drugs for a little while. Did my pump to Okinawa and mainland Japan, Fuji, and ended up getting out because it was 93. Clinton was in office. I couldn't even re-enlist at the time to stay infantry.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and I'm like, well, I didn't join the Corps to not be in the infantry. So I
Right.
guess I get to figure out what's next in life. That was my Marine Corps journey, man.
It's funny that it really is a small Marine Corps. 93 is basically, I dipped in 92, and because I'm an immigrant, I was held back a grade and ended up going. I would have graduated and gone into Marine Corps 92, but because of that stuff, I went in 93. But it's like you serve. I was in Fuji. I served there for a year, and and I'm very familiar with as well with 29 Palms and that airfield. That's 370. It belongs to 374 actually, which is one of the units that we used to serve when I was with 372. So it's just kind of like 7 degrees of Colburn is what I like to call it.
Yep.
but but it's very how what a way for your staff time to to kind of like hey, you're not a little bitch, are you? And I mean, what are you gonna say? Yes, yes, I am. It's just like, okay, I guess, fuck it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, dude, these guys, it's not like the unit saw a lot of combat during the first Gulf War, but
Right.
the stress of going to a war zone, the stress of crossing the line, and then here I come from Adak, Alaska, where we got excited when caribou would walk into the wire so we could hunt them, you know. But you got to do what you got to do, man. Had to prove my worth.
Yeah. By the way, Matt Max Gilman is right here on the horn, and shout out to you, brother. And but he said he just put on the chat that 374 was deactivated, and that's part of the the new redesign of the Force. Holy shit! So, but you're right. I remember everybody when I came hit the fleet, it's like every sergeant you know every sergeant, they looked like they were fucking 80 years old, like old as shit. Or maybe I'm just getting too older, but the few times after I retired, and even when I was still in, it's like sergeants got kept getting younger and younger and younger. You know what I mean? It's like, holy shit, does your mom you're playing Marine? But you're right, like those guys, as I had, you know, and at the Marine Corps Ball, you see these young Lance Corporals and shit with this huge salad bar on their chest from the Gulf War, and it's like fucking war heroes and
Dude,
all
think
that
how the
stuff.
boot lieutenants felt coming to our unit, Freaking butter bar, and the entire platoon's got a rack, and then there were, a few people like myself who didn't. But dude,
Yeah.
you know what's crazy you say about the sergeants? When we were pumping to Okinawa, they did the little manpower shift where we got people that were going to be in long enough from, I think it was 3-7. And then our short timers went to 3-7 just so everyone could be TO for the pump. And this Sergeant Lutz came over, and he was salty, calm, mellow. If he was yelling, you were beyond screwed, he had that dad look, to little kids. And he was kind of mellow. We played spades on occasion, drinking the Boone's Farm in the
Oh,
barracks.
fucking spades, baby.
But so I got to know him a little bit. I'm out like 2 years. I'm watching the History Channel. And if everybody remembers, Iraq invaded Kuwait, and there was a Marine unit there that went to the roof, or they were on the roof, and they like wake up and they're surrounded by, Iraqis. And it was him on TV talking about his experience on this rooftop, calling for fire because that's all they could do. Hitting around him. And I'm like, holy crap, I drank Boone's Farm with him, and he's this
Oh,
guy. Dude, they were calling for fire so much, walking it in. They basically were told, look, tomorrow morning you need to be off that roof because there ain't going to be a building, and they literally went downstairs in the middle of the night and just boogied to get out of town before it was leveled. But I'm watching this guy on TV and I'm like, that's so crazy that was him,
yeah, and that was some of the experience that I had, with these guys, and as we move forward, time moving forward, I had guys that you know, I, as much I would have loved to be part of Fallujah. I mean, I was part of, the first push and everything. I helped, I stood up and, we helped. I was at I duty at a reserve unit, inspector, instructor. Basically, you're just permanent personnel. For basically you're the host for the reservists when they come on deck and stuff like that. And we took, that first unit to, OIF, OEF, whatever they called it, and everything. But yeah, we had these guys from Fallujah, and it's funny that you're talking to some of these fellows, and it's kind of like if you follow the pattern how they acted and behaved, the ones who really saw some shit, and I'm sure including some of the guys that you dealt with or encountered when you first came in. They kind of had that same thing, like, holy shit, these guys, I mean, and they're good, those guys are in history books, and so are these guys, fucking Fallujah and everything else, you know what I mean?
Right. And it's, you know, it, in corporate America, I used to run a rescue ambulance. We ran 911 in LA County. It was life or death. It gives you a different perspective of what's emergent and what's not. And then you walk into a corporate environment, they're like, oh my gosh, this report's not done. You're like, relax, man. No one's dying. No one's bleeding out. It'll get done.
Yeah,
That's an emergency to them. And you're just like, okay, take a deep breath.
it's fun. So kind of to caveat of what you're saying, I do safety and everything for a living, and the day before yesterday was a small one of the filters at one of the suction booths where where they grind and all that stuff. It's a downdraft booth. One of the amber, a hot piece of metal got sucked into the paper filter, smolder a little bit, and it just smoking really bad. Anyway, so I went over there, everything was good to go. There's a dude that's a former firefighter that works with me and as well. So we're like, okay, no big deal. So today we had a meeting. One of the guys, and I think this dude was just stirring the pot, said, "Hey, how come nobody said, evacuate the building, blah blah blah." Just like, and I looked and I looked at him, and I know this. I looked at him like, I'm like, really, bro? I'm like, say, I made the fucking call. It was no big deal. Everybody was safe. So, but you're right. It's like it turns you. Our level of intensity is, not to hate on the civilians, but this is our level of intensity and what we've seen and done, and then this is there down here, like, oh my
Right.
god, you
Right.
know.
It's
So
that whole improvise, adapt, overcome we hear in
yeah,
every Jarhead movie.
yes,
I was working security and it was a high rise in downtown LA and fire alarms go off. So I go cruising back there. It's probably nothing. And I look outside and one of those, those bug zappers that have the neon lights in it,
yeah, I love those things.
this hydraulic line broke and started throwing fuel on it and it ignited. So there's a little fire inside this bug zapper. It's completely concrete all the way around it. And I look over and the engineer's like freaking out and going, "Where's the hammer? Where's the hammer?" to break the glass to get the fire extinguisher. I'm like, I walk over, I break it with my elbow, and I look at him. He's like, "Oh," he grabs the fire extinguisher. We put the fire out. But it's like, that was his hang up. He didn't
Yeah,
know how to break that thin piece of glass. And you've got a foot, you've got an elbow, get the job done.
yeah, fucking make it happen, chief.
Yep.
So you did your time in the Corps, and then it sounds like you did some EMS related stuff. So how'd you end up opening or owning SitchRadio and transitioning into telecoms and being a broadcaster basically?
So web was always a hobby. The internet like amazed me. And I started learning to code HTML when it was like HTML2 before JavaScript. I mean, it was ugly looking websites. And I kind of grew that into a little side hustle. I was coding people's websites for them back before when you actually had to code. And
Right.
a Masonic lodge had the idea to do a podcast. And because podcasts were on the internet, I had to know everything about podcasts because I knew about the internet. And I said, sure, we can do that. And I figured out how to get it done really quick. And we produced a podcast in 2008. And it was an awesome experience because, in my opinion, podcasting is like the last bastion of free speech. We can cuss, we can pretty much talk about anything we want about, as long as it's not hate speech defined by the law. All I have to do is check a box that says explicit and it's fair game. It's
Right.
extremely hard to get a piece of audio declared a podcast removed from a hosting account. And I love that about podcasting. So I did that. I kind of, side hustled websites for a while. I found myself a sales job and kind of kept doing it on the side. And I helped a friend with a podcast, and more people started coming to me, podcast. So it was at the point where you run the numbers. You're like, I think I've got enough customers to open a studio and offer more services by having people come to me to record their audio. And pulled the trigger and did. My partner that was supposed to be 50-50 with me, day one said, yeah, I can't do it, after I just signed a lease. So that sucked. And then 3 people that said they would start shows with me didn't come on board. So that sucked. And because of my sales experience, I just hit LinkedIn. I started going to every networking event I could. I was able to generate enough customers to keep the lights on, if you will. And just over a year ago, we've relocated from 260 square feet to 1,200 square feet. And we're making I like to say we don't make, we help people tell their stories, but we are
Right.
a part of some really cool content being made right now, and happy to do it. I mean, dude, I get paid to sit here and listen to you tell stories, because I've got some buttons and a little knowledge and a few accounts, and I can help get it done. And I've learned we've had Bash Rutton in the studio. We've had some really cool people. We got to work on an episode where Will Jimeno was being interviewed, where he was recounting his experience when the towers fell in New York. He was
Wow.
one of the two survivors that were pulled from the pile.
Wow.
And I'm hearing this firsthand. And this is what really amazed me about that. I started to edit it. And I went, wait a minute. And I called Jeanette. Jeanette works for me. And I said, I want you. She understood the basics of editing. She wasn't an awesome editor at the time, but I wanted her to touch this piece of audio because she was 1 year old when those towers fell. She learned about 9/11 in history class. And for me to give her the opportunity to work on this piece of audio, the man telling the story himself was kind of cool. It was passing that torch.
Yeah.
And just to be part of the content that we help create is really cool. Really fortunate to be here.
No, and you got a great platform, and and everything you help out. I mean, that's how it's fun. Again, it's all that three degrees of separation. I met you initially through Aaron and at the Warrior Build Foundation, and I mean, I used to come on his show all the time, and even to this day, I mean, there's been a couple times where I've come on to just kind of talk about my issues, and because his show tends to be a little bit more serious, not as lighthearted as this one, and and I just kept saying, dude, I got this idea for this podcast. We should just get together and bullshit, and I get it. He's very busy at the same. I mean, the dude runs a nonprofit, and he's involved helping veterans, and he's got a lot of things going, a lot of irons in different fires, as we all do. And
Right.
then that's when when I reached out to you, and I'm like, dude, I got this thing, and you're like, fuck yeah, let's do it, and it's been a crazy ride ever since. So, and for you to be able to help out all these different people, I mean, SitchRadio has got I mean, an amazing platform of different types of shows. I mean, you got anything from what's the one with the latest coffee talk? I believe is it coffee talk or let's talk coffee? Where
Todd's doing some show. Todd DeVoe is an emergency manager and teaches at post-secondary level emergency management as well. He's doing a show outside of the studio, behind a paywall on his own, but he is the host of Business Continuity Today with Me, which is a corporate show. He is contracted with us to be the host for a show out of the UK,
oh wow,
that we produce. And then he has his own show that we produce with him, the Todd T. DeVoe Show. And it's leadership, crisis management, things of that nature. But I mean, yeah, Dr. Anita has her platform, and she's all about the inclusivity and diversity in the workplace. We've worked with Dale Carnegie, Orange County on 411 of Business. We work with 511 and their podcast called A Service, which
that's right.
is
Yeah, I forgot
which is
about
a
that. Yeah.
cool story. We have a few private podcasts. Corporations work with us, and instead of giving out that newsletter once a month that everyone looks at and throws away, their newsletter's audio. So all their
Oh
employees
no
are given a
shit.
private RSS feed that they can plug into any podcast player, and they get the newsletter via audio, and they can consume it on their way to or from work or whenever they want to. And it's not a piece of paper. So we do a lot of cool stuff. We've done books, audio books here. I mean, it's just, again, fun for me to sit here and work on all these projects.
No, it's that makes a lot of sense, especially with the newsletter, because I know at my current employer, they do a podcast, and now it makes sense. I'm like, oh, it's a newsletter. Well, no kidding, yeah. So you could be you could do it internal, because how many of us really? I'll be the first one to tell you when I see that newsletter email, flush, but it's much easier for me to listen to it.
Someone in your position, you could do 5-minute safety talks and they could be played, anytime they wanted to by everyone that needs to have their safety meetings. I mean, there's tons of uses for audio, right? It doesn't have to be
Right.
video. A machinist understands what CNC bits are.
Right.
So I'm not talking to, a 14-year-old that has no clue what a CNC machine is. So you can get away with a lot audio if it's geared towards your specific audience without having video, without burning the paper, without burning as much time.
We may have to talk offline because Collins. We may be able to work something out with Collins Aerospace. You know, that would help you and also help me. Send get the message out and the word of safety. But you
Yeah.
know, so how does I know you've published a couple of posts on your Instagram and Facebook in regards to that. You guys have been doing like a couple of free courses or how to get started, basic courses. Hey, this is how we get started. Tell us a little bit about that. I know there's people out there that want to. Hey, you know what? How do I get into this gig?
Yeah. So we, as a studio, when I started SitchRadio, maybe it's the Marine Corps mentality. I wanted to know what the mission of this was going to be. And the mission of SitchRadio is to help you tell your story, whether you're a paid customer or not. If you're in this space and we can help you up the production value and make you a better podcaster, that elevates podcasting at a whole. A rising tide raises all ships. So we do a monthly in-person meetup, and and people physically come here, and I give between an hour to 2 hour lecture, talk, workshop on some aspect of podcasting. We're getting ready to start doing these virtually just to widen that breadth. And again, stay true to our mission of helping people tell their stories. So whether they're a paid customer or not, we want to do the industry right. And I'm first to
No,
say, my way isn't the only way, but it's what I consider the right way. And, with anything with a computer, there's 14 keyboard shortcuts that will accomplish the same thing. But, a lot of people, this is one thing that blows my mind. A lot of people will record audio, put it in an editor, edit it, export it as an MP3, and upload that as a podcast episode. All audio editing software has a publish feature. And when you publish a piece of audio or video correctly, you embed EXIF data into that file. And what EXIF data is the title of your show, the title of the episode, the description, information, email address, when it was published, episode number. When you put in a CD, remember CDs, when you put those in a player, the song title would come up. That's
right.
EXIF data. So
Oh,
when a search engine is crawling a website and it hits a MP3, an audio or a video file, it goes, oh, this is a piece of audio. Let's look at the EXIF data. If it's published properly, now it has a title and a description and a published date and all that information to rank and return in search results. And if you do it incorrectly, it goes, oh, MP3. Let's look for EXIF. No EXIF. Let's move on. And it does nothing with it. And that one fact alone, I have a customer who, when he started with us, he was on like episode 156, been podcasting for 3 years, never published his shows correctly.
oh,
And one of
shit.
his big concerns is, why is my show not growing? And I, do a little digging and look at his files and look for EXIF data, and it's not there. I'm like, well, this is one of your problems, and we can go back and fix this, but you're talking about us fixing 156 files that were published incorrectly. So
Yeah.
from the point he started with us, his show's grown. Imagine that. But you don't get that kind of detail in most podcast tutorials or most, and
Right.
some people want a podcast because it's a hobby. I like yarn, so I'm going to talk about spun thread and yarn and knitting needles and stuff. And it's a hobby for them. They don't care how many people listen. They're not looking to monetize. They're not looking to do anything with it other than it's a hobby. Instead of polishing rocks, I'm doing this. And other people, they want their show to grow. They want to use their show as a funnel to trickle potential customers into a sales funnel of some sort and sell them goods, or they
Right.
want to get big enough to where they can get advertisers on board. And, it's the basics that we talk about and teach for free. So if anybody listening is interested in it, keep an eye on SitchRadio.com. There will be a link in the show notes, if I do my job correctly. And there's an events tab in the menu, and we publish everything we do. We do have paid courses. Not everything is for free, but these 1 hour little mini workshops are.
No, and I think it's great. And it all makes sense about XF data, because I know when I used to burn CDs, because now we stream, or we, with the technology. But I know that if the XF data, when you burn a CD correctly, remember when you used to pop it in iTunes, would automatically, would you like me to search, the name of the song and blah, blah, and automatically embed that information onto your CD.
Yep.
And so that when you play it, you would get the album cover and all the other information. So, man, I just learned something cool.
Instead of 42 track number ones.
Fucking nerd. No, I'm just I just nerded out and shit.
That's how that happens.
Yeah.
So now we do quite a bit, in addition to us. Sitch Radio has gotten involved with Second Chance Studios out of New York. I am a mentor to the cohort. This is their second cohort, and they take recently incarcerated individuals, and if they're accepted into the program, it's a job. They're actually paid to show up and learn this podcasting, video casting, all of that. And they're doing it to slow recidivism, in New York. And their first cohort, every single graduate was hired by MTV.
Damn.
And that
is a
cool
great
is that,
idea, man. That's
how cool is
shit.
that? So
yeah,
I learned about it from a studio out of LA, a guy I follow and respect a lot in this industry, and because I've stepped away from Warrior Built. We've talked about that.
right.
And I feel it's important to give back in some form or fashion. And I've been missing that since I left Warrior Built, stepped down as the secretary. I'm not a combat vet, so I cannot be a member of Warrior Built, but I served as their secretary for a few years. And I learned about Second Chance. And I'm like, okay, how cool is that? I think America on a whole is good, but we have our problems. And I think justice reform needs to happen at some level. And if I can help slow recidivism, I'm on board. And I'm contributing back to this industry, because the job market for this industry, companies are already freaking out, because it's already slated by mid 2023. We're going to be hurting for employees, audio engineers, editors, production assistants, producers, writers, and podcasting has gotten to that level. One of the companies I work with, the podcast production team is 9 people plus the studio, and a lot of thought, effort, and goes into each and every episode. And dude, Kim Kardashian just launched a true crime podcast.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people look at Kardashians and it's like, oh, party girls, they're only famous because of their dad.
Oh no, they're mind, business mind. I mean, it's
dude.
Yeah.
She has an empire. She's studying to be a lawyer. She just started a true crime podcast talking about the injustices in the justice system. She's interviewing the wrongfully accused, the people that have been imprisoned, and then when the justice system went, oops, our bad, you're out now. So it's going to be kind of a cool spin. And listen, I've never watched the Kardashians. I can't say I'm a fan, but I know who she is. But I tell you what, I opened Spotify. I usually don't listen to things on Spotify. I opened it up and I listened to the trailer and I went, okay, I'm gonna give it a go, man. It's very well produced. It's compelling stories. It's amazing the content that's out there.
No, dude. I mean, listen. Not to discredit the Kim Kardashian and their family. I mean, their business sense and business mind. I mean, it's. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due, and you got to keep an open mind. I mean, Rob Dyrdek, right? The skateboarder. He used to do Robin Big on MTV. Big passed away a couple of years back. but the dude has got a podcast, and it's about, uh, it's kind of like business as well as motivational, and among many different things. And I mean, it's good. I mean, I enjoy the shit out of it. And when I put and I myself, I'm a podcast supporter. So when I go on there on Spotify, I mean, hell, I've listened to some of this, the shows that are on Sitch Radio as well. So I mean, there's a lot of good fucking content out there that you can learn something, or you can hear somebody, like you said, somebody sharing their story or someone else's story, and giving them a platform to get their voice out there. I mean, it's only fair. And I know you're morphing into. We're looking. I mean, I'm a recipient, and thank you for the opportunity. I mean, we're looking at NFTs and moving into crypto, and the next phase of this whole technology morphing and next level type of thing.
You know what amazes me about that? Web3 is, I don't want to say it's here. There are elements that are here. And the RSS standard was written like 2004. Okay. It's getting its first update right now to RSS 2.0. And
Wow.
Adam Curry, talking about MTV, Adam Curry, the
Yeah,
VJ
yeah,
back,
right. He was one of the first VJs. Yes. Oh, I know that
he's
dude.
his nickname in this industry is the Podfather. He was one of the first that went
Yeah.
RSS. I have a voice. I like talking into a microphone. I'm going to start a podcast. So what he's done is in the RSS standard, he's added enclosures. And I'm going to skip forward. If anybody listening listens to podcasts, say on Spotify, when you open that app up and you push play, across the top, does it tell you how many Satoshis you're earning? It doesn't, because you don't.
No, it
They don't
doesn't.
care about sharing any of the wealth. RSS 2.0 is this value for value system. I listen to all of my shows, except Kim Kardashian's, on an app called Fountain, free. They pay me to listen to podcasts in the app. Now, it's like 2 Satoshis a minute. I'm not going to get rich. I'm not going to be able to retire. But the cool thing is, when I'm listening to a show and somebody says something like earth shattering to me, I can immediately hit a boost button and take some of that money I've earned and or transferred in and give it to them, because they just dropped a value bomb on me that's going to make me better, or my business better, or my life better. And that's the value for value model. I found value in that piece of content. I'm going to provide value back to this creator with Bitcoin. And it's on the Lightning Network. It's super fast. You get to see how many people support your show, how many people send you boost and boostograms or messages. It's crazy. Now, if we go one step farther, when is that going to happen with music?
Well, I mean,
When is that
it's
going to
coming.
happen with video? And it's really crazy, because my podcast is about podcasting. And besides my grandma, I have like 4 other listeners.
That's
I
what I
don't
say. I'm working on my third listener because it is my wife and daughter.
I don't even think you listen, Pacho, but it's about podcasting. It's little sessions of the same value I'm dropping in our free workshops.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, on the Fountain app, I can see exactly how many people are following me. Every minute that they listen to my content, they said, this is so valuable, I want to give him 10 Satoshis per minute that I listen. And these micro payments occur. I mean, and it's cool to see that I've got supporters that aren't just following me, but are willing to monetarily reward me for the value I'm providing them. I mean, how cool is that, man? That's better than a follow on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, somebody saying, "Hey, by the way, thanks for what you're putting out there in your content. Boom, here's a little something, something."
Yeah.
You know, I think that's
I mean,
pretty cool and neat, dude.
and honestly, I've never taken anything out of it. I typically give it all back to other creators that I enjoy, but it's cool that it's this ecosystem, even at this microscopic level, and there's a few RSS 2.0 apps out there that are on this value for value system, not just Fountain. Fountain was the first one that I found. Fountain made it really easier for a creator to get involved. And that's why I tout Fountain. I'm not paid by them by any means. And
Right. No.
I'm using their app.
Nice. No, I mean
And
this is all. Huh?
I was going to say, how's your project coming on Uncut, or are you not ready to talk about that yet?
Oh well, no. It just I got sidetracked over the last couple of weeks. But I am. It's on my to do list to start. Putting the plan. I already purchased my my coins and so on and so forth,
Cool.
my NFTs for my show, as well as to be a member. So the next step is starting to develop and putting content onto the platform so they can release it. But I'm excited as well. I mean, it's the next level, dude. I mean, if we're doing already art and you got CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, so on and so forth. I mean, Jay-Z is getting into this whole thing, and as well as some, and already making sports cards out of these things. It's only the next level for us to transition onto that as well.
So dude, how crazy is it? Do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk?
No, no, I'm not familiar.
So, dude, I I have to take him with a grain of salt. I can't listen to, he's calmed down over the years. So he's more mellow now than he used to be. And he's point blank. He'll just drop value. And somebody asked him one time, why do you give all this knowledge away for free? He goes, 90% of these fucking people are too lazy to do anything with it. What's it matter? No one's
That's
going to
true.
rise to my level to compete with me. They're too lazy. But he started this NFT project and it was called V Friends. Vaynerchuk.
Oh, I know who
VFriends.
you're talking about. I know who you're
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
dude,
he's on my
they,
LinkedIn feed. Yes, yes. I know.
they
I know.
just launched they just launched their plushies. So he went from art to a physical good being sold at Macy's and Toys R Us. So I can buy platypus, whatever that he drew that people were
Yeah.
buying for, $7,000. It's it's insane that it's coming full circle. But you're right. The sports cards, I got involved with not Wax, Flow, a coin called Flow. It's an altcoin, but they've signed with the NBA to do the sports cards. I think they have NASCAR on board. It's like, okay, if these major sports leagues are going to get involved with this coin and that project, I want in right now before things blow up. You know, it's
Yeah.
amazing what's
I mean,
going
if
on in
they're
the world.
yeah, and if they're 0.0000, I mean, now it's the time. Since it's still to the right, and as they get closer to the left, and then once they jump over that digit, you're like, oh shit, I missed the boat. So no,
Right.
I think we're just on the cusp of something exciting when it comes to, and you know regardless how people may feel about crypto and NFTs and whatever, moving 30 years later, hey, who the fuck thought that the internet, oh, that's just a thing, Al Gore is just talking shit, and I mean, and here we are, right? So
It's funny. I was talking to a guest earlier for one of our shows, and currency came up. And I go, I don't even think I have a bill on me. And I pull my wallet out. I don't have a single US bill on me
I don't.
anymore. I have my debit card, I have a credit card, I have my cryptocurrency Visa. So when I swipe it, it pulls from
Yep,
crypto.
Coinbase, yeah, I did the
It's
same thing.
it's I mean, and especially during the pandemic, man, how you really want to handle cash?
No, again, we are at the again, we had the dot-com explosion, and and all the other things and all the other fads that we didn't think, or some people didn't think that they were gonna stick around. I remember back, and before we wrap up, but I remember back in 2018 when Bitcoin was kind of getting, a little bit of, and I spent, you can ask my, Motomi, who I spent hours at night just trying to convert some crypto into Ripple, because Ripple is a venue for American Express and all these other banking. But I was just, and you're right. And when you learn to do shit yourself, then you can eloquently, and then and people are like, hey man, what do you think of this, and blah blah. But you're right. You got to do the hard work and learn about things. as well, because that's just gonna, in the end, you never know. I mean, some might take off, NFTs may take off, podcasting, boom, next level, and you're already receiving some residual income, whether it's hard cash or electronic. I mean, a wallet is a wallet is a wallet. Is all I'm saying. Shit.
And the funny thing is, I want to say it was Gary V that said, I remember he started off with Web3s here. And just like when email came out, people like, oh, who's going to do that? It's just
AOL.
send an envelope, and people resisted email. And now, I mean, everybody has email and they get to it on their smartphone. I probably have 8 email accounts in one little device here. When the internet came out, businesses are like, why do I need a website? I mean, it's just this evolution, and Web3 is next, and cryptocurrency is next. The blockchain is here. It's not going anywhere. And instead of resisting it, you might as well start learning about it now.
Yeah, I think I forgot the name of the curve, but the bell curve that the internet, has. This is, I forgot the name for it, but I'll remember it. And that cryptocurrency is following that same pattern, and basically it's here to stay. NFTs, all that stuff, it's here to stay. But I mean, you know what? Maybe we should talk about one of our next shows between you, myself, and even Charvettes, who's on here. Shout out to Shaman. Uh, you know, we should talk about cryptocurrencies and just have a whole show about it, and how we can benefit from it. But so,
Definitely, man.
can I bring you back on the show, bro? I mean,
Dude,
shit, you're in the background.
exactly. I'm here every episode. What are you talking about? And for the record, why I was intrigued to work with you on your show, all the time I spent in the Marine Corps, you're the first freaking chief warrant officer I've ever talked to. I never saw one when I was in the fleet.
It's funny. So how I want it before we punch out. Um, and Scott Gilman knows this dude. He may know this dude. There was this guy named Mark Foreman, and this dude was when I came back into the Marine Corps. I had my experience with other warrant officers, Gunner Del Rosario, wherever he's at. Cool dude, Motor T guy. But Mark Foreman, dude, this guy was as abrasive, and I mean, typical old school females don't belong in the Marine Corps. That, I mean, you ask him and he would fucking straight tell you out. Used to bum Copenhagen and shit, all kinds of stuff. And one day I looked at this dude, and I was working for Matt Max Gilman. He was a sergeant staff sergeant, and I was a retread. I came back in. But this dude, with just the way he would lean in sometimes on that company commander's ass, dude, I was like, I want to be like this motherfucker. But another thing that Scott also taught me too is that when I became a warrant officer, it's like, hey, dude, the ass you chew today might be the one that you kiss tomorrow. So I took that to heart. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. Well,
Oh
thanks
my
for having
God.
me on, brother. I'm going to remove myself so you can close your show, and links for me are in the show notes.
Yeah, everybody, make sure you go check out Brian and SitchRadio.com and the array of and different many shows that he has. I podcast that is a really good one. I really love listening to that one, and my show has been featured there a couple of times. Anyways, but before we pop out of here, I just want to say what's up to everybody out there supporting the show. Matt Max Gilman, Charvettes. Had a great time with Charvettes this weekend at this convention. But hey, if you've been having a hard time ruminating, just dealing with all the bad shit that sometimes that our stuff from past experience has given you, reach out to me, reach out to the show, reach out to a friend, but reach out to somebody. I'm sure I'm 100% sure, because I've been a recipient of, and I've been there before. The VA has been a great help. Military One Source, TRICARE, and just reaching out to family and coming out clean and say, hey, I'm struggling. Because the bottom line is, nobody, as great as it is supporting and doing 100 push-ups and walking a mile for blah blah and this other shit, I'd rather have you here and be able to tell your story, and then be your guardian angel, or listen to what you're going through, and we can get through it together, than instead of just telling stories that about you, in memory of. You know what I mean? So with that being said, everybody, thanks for supporting the show. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow, and pass me around like a joint at a party. And with that being said, we're gonna end this here. So, hoorah, get some Hayats Semper Fi.